This is a short one like me. Dudes with Brews on the Porch presents Michael Brews.
Dude. Craft brews and casual conversations. Joined with me again, the most, I think, frequented guest of the program, Gough from Beernuts Productions, our friend from Down Under, as we say in America. How you doing, man?
I'm all good, Drew. I had no idea I was so popular. I feel somewhat honored.
You've been on the show as a guest. I think the most amount of time. So I'm happy to have you, and I always enjoy talking to you. You always are a good conversationalist as well as a good filmmaker.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I wish I could say the same back. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Ever since our last or maybe not the last one, but one of our last conversations, you talked about the alcoholic ginger beer, and
yes,
I've been on the lookout for it. I see ginger beer all over the place, but none of it has alcohol in it. And I realized the ginger beer that we use, it's just like, I think it's just like a ginger ale type thing. They put it in Moscow mules. Have you ever heard of those?
I haven't, no.
So it's like kind of like a mixed drink. It's got some, I don't know what the hell is all in it, but you put it in like a copper cup, and you put this ginger beer with like vodka and shit like that, and people love it. I don't know that I've had one, but
No, well, when I'm talking like on tap, like you go to a bar,
yeah,
and like next to the beers on tap, you can have a pint of alcoholic ginger beer. In fact, on Sunday, I was at a pub near where I live, and James Squires, who's a big brewing company over here, have just released their first ever alcoholic ginger beer, and I had a pint of that, and I must say I did enjoy it. It was because we're right in the guts of summer now, and it was a really hot day on Sunday, and it was very refreshing with a bit of ice and a bit of lemon. It was nice, a nice pint of ginger beer at alcoholic ginger. And I'll tell you what, it's strong too, because you have a few of them and it'll put you on your ass. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's good. So you're in the hearts of summer in Australia, and we are in the dead of winter here in Wisconsin. So
well, that's how geography works. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it's not enjoyable to be in Wisconsin right now, but I'm drinking, let's call it a festive beer. I'm not really a Christmas guy. I don't know if you are, but I think over a decade of working in retail of my working life has tainted my idea of Christmas forever. But 'tis the season. I'm drinking a Christmas ale, believe it or not, and it's full of a lot of shit. So here we go. It's from Abita Springs in what was that? LA? What was that? Louisiana? I think so. Anyways, it's a brown ale that's brewed with 10 types of malted barley and fermented with American ale yeast. It has pale malts as well as a combination of caramel, Munich, chocolate, and roasted malts. It is hopped and dry hopped with Columbus, Cascade, Centennial, and Amarillo. And it has a nice piney citrus flavor and stuff. So it's supposed to taste like Christmas, I think.
Does it have a piney citrus flavor though, Drew? You're the one drinking it. Does it?
Let me find out. I get a little bit of the citrus.
Okay.
Not much of the pine. I don't know. It tastes like Santa Sack, I think.
What are you giving it out of 10? Obviously, 10 being the greatest thing you've ever tasted, and 1 being cat piss. What are you putting it on the scale of?
To me, this just tastes like kind of like a standard drinking beer, and it's not a light beer, but it's an ale. It's pretty standard. I'd give it maybe a 6, 5 or 6.
Okay,
pretty standard.
So it's just above pass mark, yeah?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I guess I could drink a couple of these on Christmas. So, yeah, are you a Christmas guy?
Well, I'm a little bit like you. I'm a little bit cynical and jaded. So, no, it's probably I don't really. It wasn't big when I was a kid. My family weren't really into it that much. So It's not. I'm not one that. And of course, obviously, being in Australia. Our big thing here is obviously going down to the beach, and you have like a barbecue on the beach, and you have lots of seafood. I mean, if you want to get seafood on Christmas Day, you have to line up at like 3 a.m. or go on Christmas Eve, because there's just no chance to get fresh prawns and oysters and all that sort of stuff. you got no chance going on Christmas Day unless you're there like outrageously early.
That's pretty sweet. It sounds like something I would want to do because, you know, everyone in Wisconsin, and I think in like the Midwest of America, they're always like, well, I don't care if it snows all winter, but by golly, there better be some on the ground on Christmas. We got to have that white shit all over the place. Otherwise, Santa won't land at our house. And, you know, it's Jesus' birthday, too, so let's get on that. And it's just, fuck snow. That's what I have to say. I hate dealing with it. And I'm perfectly fine with having a warm-ass Christmas, so I think I need to go to Australia and get some prong. Because Christmas in America, the food is just like second Thanksgiving in a sense where you just eat the same shit. It's like turkey or ham, mashed potatoes. I mean, granted, it's delicious, but it's just more of the same. So
no, over here, there's where I live on the Gold Coast, it'll be like pushing up around 100 degrees. Everybody will be on the beach. There'll be barbecues on the beach. There'll be, and so you're either having either a barbecue or cold food like seafood, like fresh prawns, oysters, that kind of stuff. So and by prawns I'm talking like big ass shrimp. That's pretty much how we roll. I've only ever had one white Christmas, and that was when I was in Canada, and I was in the prairies right up the north of Canada, and I had a Christmas up there. And it was quite funny actually, because I'm at the Backpackers where I was living. And I told everyone, well, in Australia, it's a tradition to barbecue on Christmas. So I was outside in, I think it was about minus 14 or something like that. And I'm barbecuing a big. I'd gone to the supermarket and found a big pork chop. And I thought, well, that's going to be as good as I can get. So I'm barbecuing this big pork chop and I had some barbecue sauce there that I'd made up. And so I'm barbecuing, and everyone's like, you're insane. I'm standing in the snow barbecuing a pork chop on Christmas Day. And then when I took it inside the Backpackers to eat it, everybody all of a sudden was that's not such a bad idea. I kind of like the look of that. I said, well, you had your chance. But the one thing I do love, actually, which you guys do, which we don't do in Australia, because it's actually really hard to find, and that's eggnog. I could drink that stuff all year round. I love eggnog. And the first time I tried it was when I was in Florida, of all places. It was about November. And the guy who I was staying with, because I was at like a bed and breakfast type place, and the guy who ran it, he's like, do you want some eggnog and rum? And I'm like, sure, that sounds all right. I'll try anything once. And oh man, since then I've been addicted to that. Have some eggnog with a shot of rum in it. I could, again, that goes down very nicely.
It's been a while since I've had eggnog, so maybe I should give it another chance. I've had it. I don't know if I've had the alcoholic version. It's always the non-alcoholic version, and I don't know if it's good.
Well, you should do a dudes. I know dudes with brews is traditionally your beers.
Yeah.
But you could have a festive one with a shot of rum inside the eggnog and do a bit of a review on that one.
That's a good idea. This is my show too. I make the rules, damn it. So if I want to have eggnog with some rum, I'll do it. And you recently are in the podcast game. The Beernuts Production Podcast can be heard on all your podcast apps. I've been enjoying listening to it. You've been talking to some cool people, and I'm happy. I'm happy that you're doing it, because I feel like you have the personality to be a good interviewer. Obviously, you do that a lot in your interview series films that you've been doing. We'll talk a little bit more about the latest one, but what triggered the podcast tickle, and how's it been going so far?
Yeah, no, well, thank you. I'm glad you've been enjoying it, obviously. And so I guess I'm about 10 years late to the podcast party, I guess. But two reasons. Firstly, I've been on lots as a guest, and it's always fun, and I enjoy doing it. Talking to you and other podcast people, and I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be cool if I started up my own and I could meet some really and talk to some really cool folks, and I get to choose the guests, and I get to talk to some people who I really like and who I enjoy, because we've had some reasonably well-known folks on the podcast,
right,
which has been super cool, and there's some more coming up, which has been really cool. So yeah, it's nice to talk to some people who you've admired over the years. And then of course, as a business sense, it's a wonderful marketing tool for a business as well, is to start up a podcast. I mean, you see, Conan O'Brien's got a podcast, and Dr. Phil, and they've all got podcasts now. So and it is a great way to promote yourself as a business, but it's also a really fun thing to do, to chat to people who you've always sort of admired and who are interesting. I mean, we've got actually next week's episode that's coming up. I actually chat to a guy who runs a distillery, a gin distillery, and
nice.
They're just starting to brew whiskey and also vodka as well. So, and he's got a range of different vodkas, and he takes us through how you actually, it was great because he actually came into the studio and he had a massive big, in Australia we call them eskies, big
like a jug.
cooler, full of ice and a few different bottles of some things, and he's giving me drinks as I'm interviewing him. Taste this and taste that, and I was like, okay then. So he was a great guest to have on. So, but yeah, learn all about, because I mean, so yeah, I've had comedians, I've had singers, I've had actors, I've had a couple of people in the disability sector. Obviously, being blind myself, it's interesting to chat to experts in the disability field. And so next week we're having a guy from Grandad Jack's, who's like I say, a gin distiller, which is quite an interesting thing to chat to.
Yeah, and you can, you never know the kind of people you're going to come across and all the interesting things they have to say. Like something as, like you said, like as a person who distills gin, I mean, that's a pretty intricate process, and just kind of going into that and creating it in itself is a risk, and trying to make it into a career is a pretty cool thing, and you might gain some knowledge out of it. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, I try to keep it reasonably tight. So each episode goes for about 20 minutes. And so I just have a nice friendly conversation. There's nothing overly intense about it. Try and put a bit of humor in there. And like I say, he was Luke, who runs Grandad Jack's. He was really interesting. And vodka obviously is one thing they're doing now as well. And that's, I had no idea, because I've never been involved. I've just done the drinking part. I've never been involved in the making part. And the way they go about, because apparently you extract the starch, and he was going through how you get the starch out of things like potatoes, and you can make vodka out of potatoes and all sorts of crazy things. So it was quite interesting. So so there's some famous people on the podcast and some not so famous people, but interesting people as well. So and I try, like I say, and mix it around and keep the guests as interesting and as fresh as I can. Yeah,
absolutely. Are you sticking to kind of like the interview format of the podcast, or have you ever bounced around like kind of how you do your film series and introducing characters or anything like that?
No, at the moment I'm just going to stick with normal interviews with actual real life people, and save the comedy stuff for the website for people to download, because keep it. I like to, like I think I've told you before, I always like to keep my stuff as varied and different as possible, so that if people enjoy the podcast, that's great, but then they might not enjoy the film so much, but they might enjoy reading one of the books, so I like to keep everything. And when I do my films, obviously there are different sort of styles and all that sort of stuff, so I like to keep things as different as I can, so that I try and have something for everybody. I don't want to be discriminating against anybody. I've got to be open to everyone, so hopefully there's something on the Beernuts Productions website that'll suit everybody. So that's sort of my goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you can't find something that you enjoy on there, you're just a soulless person, I would think.
I'll have to put that on a poster.
You should. Let's talk a little bit about your latest film, the Jasmine Stinks Interview, part of your interview series, which I've enjoyed a lot. I've gotten the opportunity to watch a good amount of them, and I enjoyed this one too. Had some good laughs on it. A little bit of a change of scenery. It's at a local park, and I'm guessing some of the people in the background weren't intentionally supposed to be there, but they were there, so you caught like real life people. And walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so as you say, this is episode 9 in our chat show series, our make believe chat show series. And so I came up with Jasmine Stinks, who's a young woman who is a very big overachiever and likes to say what she thinks. And doesn't really care about other people's feelings, to be quite honest. So I think people will realize why I named her Jasmine Stinks at the end of the interview, because she has a go at me. I mean, poor Gough really gets a pasting through this particular episode, but I probably deserve it, to be honest. But obviously it's a 20-minute comedy film, and hopefully people really enjoy it.
Yeah, and with it, the thing I liked about it, and it becomes kind of like one of the themes that you see right away, is where the interviewer becomes the interviewee, and you're trying to get some good content and good dialogue between this supposedly super interesting person that's achieved a lot, but she really just kind of is more about herself, and she's trying to pry into you a little bit. How did you think about that? Like, have you experienced something like that in an interview where you're trying to ask questions and they're like prying into your life a little bit?
Not really. No, it's funny. It came about. So the trailer of the film. So when people jump onto the Beernuts Productions website and they watch the trailer, or go to the YouTube channel and see the trailer, what I used for the trailer was actually the very first thing I wrote, which was the paragraph about her being a rowing champion and rowing from America to Australia unassisted in a rowboat. And the reason why I thought of that was the guy at my gym that I go to has decided that he's going to row from Australia to Samoa, which will take him 90 days in a rowboat just by himself. And for no reason, just because he feels like he's not raising money for charity. He's not doing it for any reason, just because.
He's doing it for the glory.
So, yeah, he's a little bit cuckoo bananas. I mean, I could think of other things I'd like to do for 90 days anyway. But hey, look, that's what he wants to do. So good on him. But so essentially, you go to the gym and you'll just see him in the corner sitting on a rowing machine, and he just rows for like 6 hours straight because he's got to train for the 90 days of rowing he's got to do. So I thought that was kind of funny and unique. So I just got home one day and I sort of typed up a paragraph of someone doing a record-breaking row, and then it needed a joke at the end. So I had the joke of sleeping under the stars is great after all. You are homeless. So and then I thought that's pretty funny. So then I thought, well, what else can I sort of write around that? So that was sort of the first paragraph I wrote of it, and that sort of gave me the spark to run with it, and that sort of gave me my different tangents of her having a crack at me, and also the wonderful achievements that she's also done.
What's it like to film in, like, because I'm guessing that was an actual public like area that you were filming in, correct? Yeah, it was. Yeah. So we've got everything set up. I've used that park a few times because it rarely gets used. It's a really nice park, and yet nobody goes there. It's really quite weird. So we just obviously you got to be a bit clever. You wouldn't use it on a Sunday afternoon, for example, when people might be in there playing or got barbecues going on or whatever. But we always make sure go there at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning when the kids are at school. And so there's, hopefully you get it to yourself. And if there's a few passers by, that's fine. You chase them down, get them to sign a release, and all things are good. But there's no. So we've used that. I mean, you got when you're a filmmaker and your budgets aren't huge, you got to be a bit strategic about what you film and when you film it. So I mean, we've used beaches before in films, and public parks, and obviously other public spaces as well. And so you just need to make sure that you're not in anybody's way. Clearly, you got to be, you can't be in people's faces and all that sort of stuff. Right.
You got to be smart about it and polite and all that sort of stuff. But you just got to do what you got to do, and you got to get in and get out. So yeah, Samantha, who played Jasmine, her and I, we rehearsed a lot so that we wouldn't have to film it over and over again. And so we have a 3-camera setup, and we film it as quickly as we can, pretty much get in and get out. So that's pretty much how we go about it.
So you went like a multicam, like a sitcom type style, huh? Or was that drum out?
Yeah, I usually do. For most of my films, we usually use 3 cameras at one time, because I always figure if you get a good take, you want to use that take. So you want as many angles of that take as you can get. So that's why I always like to film with multiple cameras whenever possible, because you never know. The actors might just have the one good take in them. You don't just want the one angle. So it's always good if you can have as many cameras as possible shooting, so that you can grab the best take and just edit off that one. It makes it easier for editing as well.
Yeah, I would imagine. And I originally went to my undergrad is radio, TV, and film, so I had to take some film classes, and they're talking about how they do like single cam shows, and it's like you're doing the same scene. You got to do it like 5 fucking times because this one it's with both people. This next one is a close up of you. The next one's a close up of the person you're talking to, and I was like, man, it's a lot of work.
It is, and like I say, like things as well, consistency. So like an actor might move their right arm when they film it as a close-up, but then they don't move their right arm when it's a long shot. So now the actor's got an arm halfway in the air and then it's down again and it looks odd. So that's another reason as well for consistency as well is another good reason to use multiple cameras. So yeah, whenever possible, I always use at least 2, hopefully 3. And luckily for me, my production man, Simon, he owns the majority of the equipment that we use. So he has 3 cameras. So, and they all work great. Obviously they're proper, TV film cameras. So yeah, he's got all the equipment. There's very rarely do we have to rent anything, which is good. And why one of the other reasons why I like working with Simon, because he's got everything covered.
That is one thing that I like to look for sometimes when I'm watching films is the oops incidents where, like you said before, where a person's hand is somewhere in one frame and then the next frame it's up in the sky and you're like, how the hell did that happen? I do enjoy that sometimes, and there's some really good ones, but I think yours is pretty, yours is grade A professional, so good on you.
Well, thank you very much, Drew. I do appreciate that. So yeah, but look, I have lots of fun making them, and like I say, it's all about having a laugh and being able to entertain folks, whether it be with the films or the podcast or the other audio pieces I've done. So yeah, it's just about having some fun and bringing a bit of levity into the world, which I think is something we all need at the moment, is a bit of humor. Yeah,
absolutely. How's the COVID situation over by you?
No, we're pretty much done. So yeah, there's nice. No active cases at all in Queensland where I live. I think South Australia is the only state in Australia that have any active cases. Everywhere else is COVID free. So we're pretty much, they still have us on some some rules here and there, but not really. It's as good as back to normal now for us. So yeah, so hopefully we've got one more film coming up this year. So by the end of the year, hopefully episode 10, which is going to be the Neil Maxwell Smith interview, will be released by the end of the year. And then next year, I'm looking to do a much bigger film, go back to doing the bigger films that I was doing before all COVID hit. So that hopefully will be my plan of attack for the beginning of next year. If there isn't another crazy Mother Nature style pandemic or cyclone or hurricane or bushfire or something else to get in my way. So yes.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, here in the States, it's pretty much we're pretty much completely divided, and half the population thinks this, half the other population thinks this, and it's a big fucking mess, and the cases keep on going up. So
it's a real shame, It really is. Like, I mean, I don't profess to know all the answers. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to. I don't have any answers or scientific information, but it is a shame. Nobody wants to see people dying, obviously, and everybody wants to, live their life as normally as possible. Right. Nobody wants the government interfering with their life. But I mean, it's a really tricky situation. I don't think there's any winners, no matter which way you're leaning, which way of the fence you're sitting on. It really doesn't matter. Either way, there's no winners. It sucks no matter what it is. It's a giant pain in everybody's ass.
Yeah. One thing I have noticed, though, because I have to wear a mask at work all day. And, being in Wisconsin, it's getting cold and snow and just all this freezing stuff. Face never been warmer. So it's, it's even with having a beard, the mask, it feels great. It feels great sometimes. I'm like, oh, man. So
I remember when I was in Canada and I did my Canadian winter, I did find it funny the first couple of days I was up on the prairies there, people walking around wearing a balaclava, and it's like they're going to knock over a 7-Eleven. Like, it's like, but no, it was just so they can keep warm.
Right.
So, it was kind of funny. It looked like you were surrounded by a bunch of bank robbers, but they're just walking their street. Like you'd have a guy in a suit, and yet he's got like a big ski mask on. It's like, oh, is he going to murder somebody? What's going on? It's but yeah, anything to keep warm.
Yeah, you got to do that. It's very important, especially in these harsh conditions. So be happy you don't have to deal with that. And some people out here love it, but I don't know. There's something wrong with them, I think. But so you have one more film hopefully coming out this year with the chat series. Are we gonna get a little more gough in there like we did this last one? You know, you're present in all of the other ones, but this one I think had one of the, you know, kind of you were kind of the main focus of this one. Well, are we gonna see more of that?
You know, maybe not so much in the next one. Next one is more about the guy who I'm interviewing, because the guy Neil Maxwell Smith, he's like a Rupert Murdoch media mogul type, and he's, you know, your stereotype misogynist, horrible, money hungry, you know, disgusting human being essentially. So we really get sort of stuck into that type of a person/personality. So yeah, that's where that one's going. Obviously I'm in it because I'm interviewing him, but it's predominantly more about him, and then I interview some of his staff to get their opinions on him, which is quite interesting. So yeah, that we're filming that in December, and hopefully the goal is to have that out before the end of the month. So yeah, fingers crossed, before December 31st, we'll have episode 10 up, which will be good. So people you can actually also download all of them in bulk. So if you go to the Beernuts Productions website, you can grab all the episodes all in one go so you don't have to download them all individually. So you can download a bundle package of all of them as well. So that makes life a bit easier, give you something to do instead of dealing with your annoying family over the holiday season. You can have a laugh with some of our work, which would be cool.
You know, the annoying family thing that touches on. Oh, my fiance's in the background. She's looking at me. Oops. Anyways, the annoying family thing. You're very right about that. I've been dealing with some family members that lately who have been annoying me quite a bit. So you couldn't have hit the nail harder on the head than that. And I'm not singling anyone out. I'm not saying what side of the family it's on. I'm just.
Listen, we're not here to point fingers.
Right. They're just if you're a member of my family and you're listening to this, like, just fuck off for a little bit.
Give a brother a break.
Yeah. You know, holidays are a weird time, especially now in like a time of pandemic, because, you know, it's always kind of like the joke is you go to Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner with your family, all your aunts and uncles and all that stuff. You have a good time, and then you talk shit about them the moment you leave. And now it's like you're just in the middle of dinner like talking shit. So it's a whole new different dynamic this holiday season.
It is. Yeah. So they've even opened up the borders here. So people, all the airplanes are back in the air flying all fair. So you can't escape this Christmas. So people can, fly from Victoria to Queensland or from Western Australia to Tasmania. So there'll be there'll be no Zoom Christmases in Australia. So, you can't just put people on mute like you could over there.
Yeah. Was it just like, I mean, as far as like the regulation there, was it just more, you know, you had to wear a mask and kind of stick home and people just did it? Is that kind of how that went?
No. So when it first kicked off back in March, nobody has ever been forced to wear a mask because it never got that bad. So It was essentially everybody's at home. So as soon as they had even like 2 or 3 cases, everybody was on lockdown, and we're all locked in, and that's that. And it was like 12 weeks of that. And then they got all their like contact tracing stuff sorted out. And then obviously when they let us back out again, it was about, if somebody gets it. So what happened was there was a big problem in Victoria because overseas travelers have to quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks when they come back. But of course, there's horny security guards who can't help themselves. And they went in and they fucked a few of these nice looking ladies who were traveling back from overseas who had COVID-19. And then they didn't tell anybody because, they're married and whatnot. And so we don't want people to know that we've been up to no good. And sure enough, the security guards spread it around the community of Victoria. So Victoria had a second wave, and they had to go into a second really harsh lockdown to get that back under control. But luckily for me, I don't live in Victoria. I live in Queensland, so I've been fine. So we only really had the sort of 12 weeks back, March, April, May. And like I said, I was very lucky because I still had access to my recording studio, so I could still make audio pieces while everybody else was on lockdown. I was still able to sort of continue working, which was really lucky for me. So it's funny. Like, I mean, this year I really didn't have any intention of doing much audio stuff at all. And as it's turned out, I've actually recorded 6 audio sketches for the Beernuts Productions website and started a podcast. So I've been like hitting audio really hard. And like in January, I had no intention of doing much audio stuff. So I suppose it's a good lesson there on you sort of got to be nimble and sort of go with the flow. And when something happens, you got to roll with the punches and figure out a way to sort it out and to keep going. So, and that's what I did. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's great. And like I said, I like the work that you've been doing with the podcast, and it's good to have you on the pod team. Like you said, pretty much everybody has a podcast these days, but you never know where it's going to take you. I most certainly never thought I'd be talking to any of the people that I've interviewed on the show. So it's a lot of fun, and I never started it, you and I wouldn't be talking from time to time, and I wouldn't be getting these great laughs for the price of nothing.
Well, you're very welcome. It must be a tremendous honor for you to talk to me. But I'm only teasing. No, look, you are quite right. And yeah, obviously, if people just type in Beernuts Productions Podcast, that'll come up. And obviously, everything's on the Beernuts Productions website, which is just beernutsproductions.com. You can buy all the films. You can check out all the audio pieces. You can listen to the podcast directly off the website as well. So, but we're on, Spotify and Apple and all the, all the other places where podcasts are available too. So, yeah, if you just type in Beernuts Productions into Google and see what comes up, that's probably the best thing to do. Absolutely,
yeah, and I definitely recommend it for anyone who enjoys, comedy, independent film, kind of that oh, sorry, that was my dog Phil. But anyone who enjoys that, having a laugh and being able to sit down for 20 or 30 minutes sometimes and just watching something to take a break or something. I really recommend Beernuts Productions for sure, because it's I've really enjoyed them all.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. I'm really pleased because, yeah, like I say, especially this time of year and with the year that everybody's had, I think winding back and having a laugh is probably something that everybody should probably think about doing, So, yeah, hopefully Beernuts Productions can provide a bit of entertainment for folks over the coming weeks. So, yeah, and thank you as well for obviously having me on the show and supporting what I do. You've been a great supporter of Beernuts Productions, Drew, and I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to seeing episode 10 and further listening to your podcast and seeing you take over the industry one project at a time.
And you gotta try and hunt down some of that alcoholic ginger beer somewhere. There's got to be some somewhere for you, Drew.
There's got to be.
It is really, especially, I suppose. It wouldn't be refreshing at the moment because it's, minus 100 degrees outside. But come summertime, it really goes down a treat. So, yeah, got to get into that. But, no, thank you so much for having me on the show, Drew. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll email you a Moscow Mule recipe, and you'll have to let me know how you like it if you ever get around, or go to a bar or a pub and see if they'll whip you one up.
Actually, I'll tell you what, just really quickly,
sure.
I was at an Irish pub only a couple of days ago, and I met these Irish fellas because I'm a reasonably social kind of fella, and they're obviously drinking pints of Guinness like the Irish like to do. And I was actually drinking Kilkenny, which I quite like. I don't know if have you ever tried a pint of Kilkenny?
No, I don't know that I've heard of it.
It's a really, really nice. It's very popular here in Australia. It's an Irish beer, obviously.
Okay.
But if you Google it, it's one of those, when they pour it though, it takes forever to settle. So takes like, you order it and you get it 5 minutes later. Anyway, they said to me, have you ever had a baby Guinness? I said, what's a baby Guinness? And essentially it's a shot, and it's 3/4 Kahlua and then on the top is Bailey's. So when it's in the shot glass, it looks like a little baby Guinness. Obviously, it's very, very sweet, but they go down quite nicely as well, it must be said. So, so I was drinking pints of Kilkenny and some baby Guinness, so it was very nice.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that one sometime. We have things called Irish car bombs, where I think it's a shot of Jameson, a shot of Bailey's maybe in a Guinness, and it it will curdle if you don't drink it fast enough. It's disgusting.
Well, there's of course the Jaeger bombs, which are always very popular, which is the shot of Jaeger in a Red Bull.
Right. Yeah, I'm not into that.
That'll get your heart started. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it might stop it too a little later. So
it very well could. It very well could. So yes.
Well, thanks a lot again, Gough, for joining the show, and Beernutsproductions.com for all things comedy, all things podcast, independent film, anything you really need to take a break from the monotony that is your life. Really suggest that. Beernuts Productions.
No worries. Thanks, Drew, and happy festive season to everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Pew pew! Audio. Goodbye, everyone.